Good morning and welcome to Sunrise. I am Alero Edu.
Good morning, I'm Neota Igbe and welcome to the show. It's,
Very busy week, very busy week.
Well, we're going to
And
talk about after a very hectic day of no movement for those on the mainland. I don't know how the island was for you guys.
Coronavirus. If I don't have to go out, I don't.
Okay, but then there was coronavirus. The coronavirus there, but yesterday was everywhere on the mainland. Or okay, let me say, mostly Ikeja, Berga, and this was at a standstill
Wow.
yesterday, especially the morning hours.
And the third Mainland Bridge hasn't even been closed yet.
Oh no, it was even very. Third Mainland was actually free yesterday, considering the situation. Everybody was like, "What's going on?" The entire stretch from Ikeja from Third Mainland, Berga, was blocked because of an accident around Kara Bridge.
Oh dear.
But the way into Lagos, Third Mainland, was free. Why? Two lead tank articulated vehicles carrying petroleum product had an accident. So the road was just so that there's no fire incident. Thank God for their prompt response. And the fire service and road safety, transport man, the police were all there. They blocked the road. So everybody stopped while they evacuated the petroleum product.
Oh dear.
But Alera, it wasn't a smiling experience. I walked.
From where?
Well, I walked a total of 10.18 kilometers.
Good for you. That's good exercise.
Yeah, I thought, okay, that's a good one. At least I hadn't done exercise in a couple of days. 10.18 kilometers. But for me, it wasn't about the walking. Why I'm bringing this up, it wasn't about the walking. I know there are a lot of things happening around. But it was about the fact that, that thing we always talk about. On a 3-lane road,
Suddenly we find 5 lanes,
7
6
lanes.
lanes.
And you're wondering, why do we do this?
And every little space that can contain a car, there's a car in it.
So you don't see room for maneuvering. Should there be a situation that needs people to reverse or change lanes, there's no space.
Yeah.
Because individuals have turned a 3-lane road to a 7-lane.
And those who are walking have no room
Have no
to
space
walk.
to walk. So you have to, you get to a certain point, you have to climb and come out on the other side.
And you're
For
going
one who
between
is
the
walking,
cars.
And you could actually just walk straight. Guess what? You leave the road and come on to the shoulder and say, let me just walk on the shoulder. Or let me go completely off the road. And these people still find you to that point.
That's
and they are
right.
honking for you
To get out of the way.
Get out of the way, I need to move. So the question then is, why, we've asked this question before, why do we still need to have petroleum products moving on the road?
Well, the rail isn't completely where we want it to be yet, so we can't really rely on that for now.
But
So we still have to use the road and damage the roads in the process.
Yeah, but we can have the products move some distance via rail. At least you can move from Lagos to a certain point via rail, and then from that point, the number of vehicles picking up can now pick up into the city and reduce the weight on the road. It's especially this Kara Bridge.
Well, go on, say it is not rocket science. Go on, go on, go on.
Especially this Lagos by the expressway, the Kara Bridge axis or Tedola.
This seems to be the only way.
But they're almost every other weekend or every other day, there's one incident or the other causing the vehicles to be blocked, the road to be blocked off just so that they can evacuate. It happens almost every
Sometimes
other week.
2-3 times a day.
It's not nice.
Lagos State, please help us by sorting out the other exit out of Lagos, which is the Lekki Expressway through Ekpe, so that the pressure on this side will be reduced. I understand that they were fixing that road at one time, but the rains have come, and you know how when the rains come, it shows the underbelly of Lagos, big time.
Well, beyond just Lagos, Federal Ministry of Works and all, I understand that works are happening everywhere. Projects are going on across the nation, across the state. But and I do know that there are people who are studying these situations and coming up with different ideas and coming up with plans. But it will be good to get to know when some of these things will be executed and when we're going to see a reduction of articulated vehicles on the road. They are needed at certain times. Yes, I used the word advisedly, reduction. I didn't say...
They move everything. Fuel, food, cement, they move everything. Everything is moved by road in Nigeria.
Not everything.
What is moved by rail? Please tell me.
Don't worry. Plans are going on. Things will change.
Plans are going on.
No,
yeah,
seriously,
right.
things will change. And I'm sure when we have the Ministry of Works here, they will tell us a couple of things.
Okay.
Hint at a couple of things.
Now, in the course of the week, there was plenty of talk about corruption. And it got really sickening. Yes, I had to go there, right? Yes, NDDC. I mean, what disheartened me the most was this commission was set up to help that region. And it is people from that region who are supposed to be running the show who are telling us tales. I mean, they sound like tales by moonlight, that they are the ones embezzling the money for their own people.
So this is tales by sunlight. It's daylight.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's very disheartening, and I mean, some of it is actually like some movie. Like, look at what happened to the former MD. It was like something, okay, it's a right script for a movie.
Yeah.
You know.
I liked, one of the videos made it on social media, and I saw how the police, well, three men were hitting at the door. And eventually they broke it open and got in. And you could hear them again, trying another door. Again, it sounds like a movie script that was being acted out.
It is.
We run, it's our nation. It's our resources. And they say a society deserves its leaders. But the question is, where is that society that, I mean, I grew up knowing that if you came into a community and you had something that didn't look like what you earned, the entire community questions you.
That's right.
How did you get this? What did you do to get this? But I don't know. At the end of the day, we all of us, whichever way you want to look at it, I'm not going to say anything, but whichever way you want to look at it, we all need to take responsibility. And taking responsibility is not going there to collect your own. We need to take responsibility for our nation and for the tomorrow of our nation. I have children and they are growing. In Nigeria, they don't have any other citizenship. So, and I'm sure you do also have children too. Some of us have children who have grown up and they are out there and they want to come back. And you're like, no, don't come back. Because you feel that the nation is not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it can be better. And we should do better by our tomorrow and by this nation. True.
And that is as opposed to in my time when people actually went abroad just to study and they were in a hurry to come back home.
And at least I got into the university and I know that we had some foreign students in our university, University of Nigeria.
That's right.
They were there and they were studying in our classes.
That's right.
Foreign students in Nigeria doing a full degree program.
In what they call exchange program.
Oh, this one wasn't even an exchange program.
Oh,
one of those guys eventually decided to stay. He married a Nigerian and he's still in Nigeria and he's lecturing in one of the universities. One of them, at least I know, he's a friend of my family. But what I'm saying is that they were there and they were learning and they didn't want to go. But today we want to go there because we have a good system. Yes, we can make it better.
Question. And then your children they don't want to come back and you want them to come back and some of them want to come back and what are they coming home to? And then they don't want to come back and you say, so why am I going to force them to come back? What are they coming home to? I mean, how many years after independence, we're still talking about power, we're still talking about water. I mean, there's no potable water. I mean, growing up in Lagos in those days, many houses did not have their own taps, but there were public pumps where you could go get clean water. Even that doesn't exist anymore. So, I mean, what's going on with our country? How did we find ourselves in this pass? And we hear of billions and billions being stolen every single day. Then the person who's supposed to be fighting corruption, he has allegations against him. I mean, all of this is also disheartening.
You know, there's this story, and I haven't really gotten proof that in some Asian countries, when you get appointed, you're given an appointment in government or you get elected, part of your orientation is you're taken to the prison where those who were there before you were locked up for stealing. I mean, the president of
You are shown.
the president of South Korea was jailed 32 years for corruption. The former president of South Korea, 32 years. It was just reduced by 10 years. So 22 years she will spend in jail for corruption. Our own is nobody goes to jail for corruption. Okay, yes, some people have been jailed, but you still find more people stealing.
Scapegoats.
But then a former civil servant said something. He said, the Nigeria civil service is such that every document is traceable. When you sign a document, when you type anything, it is traceable from where it started to where it ends. It is traceable. So the documents are there. And that's why they continue stealing files.
What they
and
call
they refuse,
paper trail.
and some of them refuse to put it to computerize it because they feel that I can steal that one or I can set fire to the place and there's no cloud saving anywhere. Our system is such that if we want to catch a thief in this country,
We will catch him.
that thief is catchable. If there's a word like that. So what we're trying to say is that it is doable. Let's take responsibility. We can do better by this nation. We can do better by us. And we can get this nation to where we want it to get to. The question is, how much do we want to do? Or are we looking for a savior? Why don't we all come
Be
together
the saviors.
and be the saviors that we want? Is a question. Many.
Good. We're going to start today by looking at growing the economy in the face of the pandemic. How do we begin to grow our economy again?
And flight operations, yay!
They resumed.
They resumed. So we're looking at that.
And then, of course, we'll be looking at the third Mainland Bridge repair and movement in Lagos while those repairs are going on in the period of 6 months.
You can imagine, some people have to trek more than 10 kilometers. Okay, of course, we'll end with the artist of the week. And this artist is very unique. Very, very unique origins and anyway, let me just...
Anyway, and she's a she. She's a she.
But so we'll take a moment and we will be back. I'm already seeing some comments pouring in here. Thank you so much. Someone said, I did 5 hours on the Long Bridge Lagos-Ibadan Expressway yesterday. 5 hours.
Jeez.
Wow. That's like a
useful time.
Very useful time. But anyway, we'll take a moment and we will be back. Do send in your comments, your tweets, and our Twitter handles and our email will be on the screen. Send in your comments. We'll share them as we get them as quickly as possible. But keep it civil and let's be nice. We'll be back shortly. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us. We'll now hit the road. We're already on the road, so let's start running.
And we're already running.
On this road. Okay, so as the population shrinks in many parts of the world, is the population really shrinking? Nigeria...
COVID is taking a lot of people. That's why.
Okay, as the population shrinks by reason of the pandemic, Nigeria, a developing country with a raging youth workforce, could become the 9th largest global economy, drastically changing the world order in 2100. And that's according to a modeling study by the University of Washington. This is coming just as the International Monetary Fund announced that the Nigerian economy would witness a deeper contraction of 5.4% and not the 3.4% it projected in April this year. But the global leader expects Nigeria's economy to rebound by 2.6% in 2021.
Amen to that.
Well, if it contracts by 5%, over 5%, it rebounds by 2.6%.
It's an improvement.
Okay. We have also been told that Nigeria's economy can't reach full potential without financial inclusion. You know, sometimes I let some of these terms that I use. I wonder, can that man selling bread relate, or the man selling tomato by the roadside. That relationship is what I'm hoping that our guest today can help us.
No, but the thing is that what is his contribution to GDP?
Is he not contributing?
Well,
We'll
the
find out.
economists are here.
Okay, so to help us answer all of these questions, here in Lagos, we have Johnson Chukwu, Managing Director of Cowrie Asset Management Limited. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And from our Abuja studio, we have Tokwe Fashua, an economist. Thank you for joining us.
And politician.
Okay, let me just start off with you, Tokwe. That question Alera and I attempted or came together to ask, the fact that Nigeria's economy would do better with effective financial inclusion, what role does that small scale businessman play in ensuring in that situation?
Okay, I know you said Tokwe, but I know you are asking me so.
No, I'm looking at Tokwe right now. Tokwe?
So, yes, I'm with you. So the small-scale businessman plays a number of roles, apart from being part of the general economic machine. The GDP of a nation is computed as all goods and services sold within a nation, within a country in a given year. So even the little that he sells by the roadside makes it as part of the GDP. If he sells more, the GDP grows more. So that's the thing. When we talk about financial inclusion,
Tokwe,
what we're saying
just
is
wait.
the fact that...
Tokwe, hold on. Okay, hold on. So we're going to go on a quick break, but before we do that, I want Mr. Chukwu to just say a couple of words about that question.
Well, interestingly, those people on the roadside, the small and medium-scale enterprises, account for 48% of our GDP.
Okay.
And about 94% of our employment.
Okay, all right.
They do contribute.
Absolutely, almost 0.5% of what is produced in this country are contributed by them.
Okay, we'll go on a quick break and we'll be back to continue the conversation. Just stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have Mr. Tokwe Fashua from our Abuja studio and Johnson Chukwu here in our Lagos studio. Thank you, gentlemen. So before we went on that break, we asked a question which both you, Mr. Chukwu and Mr. Fashua, weighed in on, the impact or how much of impact the small businessman on the road has on the Nigerian economy. Now, both of you agreed on the fact that he contributes substantially. And Tokwe put it this way, if he sells more, then he contributes more. So the question now is, what do we need to do? Because we're talking about the Nigerian economy post-COVID, even within COVID. What do we need to do to keep this economy moving in the direction of a rebound?
The first thing I said is that they actually account for about 48% of economic activities and contribute 84%, it's actually 84%, not 94% of employment in the country. So if we want the economy to grow, we must incentivize that sector that account for more than close to 50% of our GDP. And how do we do that? We have to look at what are the constraining factors, what are the challenges they have. Some of the challenges that are very obvious is the issue of access to finance, because they find it difficult to get credit. Simply that they are small-scale enterprises. So they don't have, a lot of them don't have what you call collateral, what you use to secure your loan. So we need to modify our collateral system so that whatever they have can be used as security. We have to look at alternative methods that such small and medium-scale enterprises, such small-time operators can borrow money. Some of them have actually developed some informal systems, the institute scheme, the cooperative arrangement, where they contribute money and then lend to themselves. We have to find a way of integrating that into our financial system, so that through self-recognition, through counter guarantees by their members or family members, we can lend to them. Because the sector that accounts for 50% of your economic activities, you really can't, if you look at the distribution of credit in the country, I mean the loans that are given out by banks, they get less than 5% of the entire loans, but they contribute 50% of economic activities.
No, one would think that because they, one would think that because they have so much of activity, they should be getting more of this. But is it a principle of the more you get, the more you have, the more is given to you, and the less you have, the more is taken away from you?
Yes, there's somebody that says, look, banking system is such that they always prefer to give to those who everybody wants to give money
established.
to, those who already have. And I did mention the issue of collateral. The bank is looking at, if I give you this one and the transaction fails, what will I attack to get back my money? Most of the small businesses don't have such money, such underlying assets. But they have something. Some of them have integrity. Some of them have experience. Some of them have a network of friends and family members that can stand in the gap for them. Some of them have properties, family land that that have not been, they don't have CFO.
Yeah.
But they are there, the assets. We can't attach those assets because we say, well, you can't use it. Some of them have movable assets. Some of them have motorcycles, which can also serve as collateral. We need to look at what some other people have done. What they did in Bangladesh, what they're doing in Kenya, as in respect to how do you bring in the informal sector into the formal sector so that we can provide those things that they lack and allow them to grow faster. Because if you take, for instance, the sector that accounts for half of your economic activities, should it start growing at a faster rate, you know your economy will boom. Look at employment. I said that they employ 84% of the population. So it simply means that if we can incentivize them to grow, if we can encourage them to grow further, we will reduce the issue of unemployment.
Well, Mr. Chukwu, I would also imagine that the bank would also like to see some record of how their business is going. So we're talking about paperwork,
Yes, my approach to it is this. Some of them are not well educated, so they may not have the ability
keep records such that the bank would appreciate.
Yes, but two things we have to do. One is the issue of collateral emission. The other is I call it some form of mentorship or incubation process, where these small businesses, you can actually bring them together, form them into unions, into cooperatives, and then teach them how the skills they lack. And if you form them into cooperatives, they can pull resources together, and it becomes easy for you to assign maybe somebody from Ministry of Trade, somebody from Ministry of Industry, somebody from Ministry of Cooperatives to help them provide some of these basic record keeping.
You said you.
No,
should,
when I
get
say,
them together and form cooperatives and unions. Who is the you?
When
please?
I say this, the government is an enabler in any society.
The government.
So we need to know the government has a responsibility to stimulate economic activities by providing the enabling environment, by providing the incentives. These incentives could include encouraging these small business operators to, one, acquire skills.
Ministry of Trade, for instance.
Ministry of Trade.
Yeah.
To acquire skills. Take, for instance, some of those people in the bakery industry, people in small-scale farming. I take you, for instance, in my village. Over time, they've improved their farming methods because the government came in and said, show them how to improve on some of those farming methods like rice cultivation, the aspects that relates to improved seedlings. They wouldn't sit on their own and know those things. They don't have capacity to go and read papers and see what's going on, new developments in their area. So it has to be, the sanitation services that some government used to do in the past. It seemed that has been put in abeyance. So a lot have to do with how government will help the small-time operators, businesses to grow their businesses. I did mention the issue of collateral. I did mention the issue of skill acquisition. There are other things, such as helping them to share facilities. I'll give you an instance. I come from Aviation State. There was a time in the 80s where the leather industry, the shoe industry in Aba was one of the biggest in Africa. People were coming from all parts of Africa to buy shoes in Aba. But what created it? Competition, the borders were opened. Two, infrastructural failure, power supply, issue of tariffs on some of their input materials. And then there was the reason why people can't even go to Aba today, there are no roads to get there. So if you provide some of this enabling environment like good road network, stable power supply, you can actually have island mode power generation so that in these clusters, that's where this will gather, you can provide them power supply so that to cut down their cost of operation. And then you will see them do more, they will produce more. So we need to find, when I say we, I'm talking of the government. And who is the government? You and I, what we're doing today is a contribution to that process. I mean, nudging the government to wakefulness, to realize that there are little things they can do that can stimulate economic activities and grow the economy. Because if you can grow the small and medium scale enterprises in the economy will boom. How did China grow? Yeah. Look at some of the countries we used to laugh at. Look at what's happening in Malaysia.
Taiwan.
Look at Taiwan.
Hong Kong.
Of course, even Vietnam today has become a bastion of production. But we used to know of Vietcong and all those war. I mean, there was films we watched there. We are all replaying what happened in Vietnam. But today, Vietnam is growing at a very fast rate because the public sector, the government, have done one or two things to encourage the critical sectors of the economy. And today, the most critical sector we need to encourage is the small and medium scale enterprises, the small-time operators.
Okay. Talk about again, Mr. Chukwu has pointed out to one thing again, how the small and medium scale enterprise needs to be incentivized. In his words, we need to formalize the informal sector. When you spoke earlier, you said something about the more they do business, the more they will add to this. In the face of some of those business owners not being that well informed or educated, how can they do more? And then he is saying that government needs to do more to encourage them to go the route of contributing more to the economy. How would that work?
All right. First of all, I need to put this in context. You know, we're talking about growing the economy today, but I think the challenge before Nigeria and Nigerians today and the government especially is the task of stabilizing this economy right now and ensuring that it doesn't plummet into a black hole. If you look at all that has been happening around us with this effect of COVID and all of that, shutdowns, shut-ins, lockdowns, you know, and then tentative reopenings here and there. But if you look at our high streets, you see that a lot of shops are hollowing out. Some of the a lot of the plazas are hollowing out as well. Some of the businesses that have braved it and opened are finding out that, look, cash flow has dropped. Nobody is buying most of the things they sell and all of that. And that is ebbing, you know, into a kind of, if you like, a cul-de-sac. So the challenge right now may not be that of growing an economy for Nigeria than for stabilizing the economy. Like you rightly said, IMF has projected 5.4% dip in the economy, which is clearly a recession. The managers of our economy can struggle to try and limit that. And I can also quickly point to some of the things that they're doing, some of the intervention from CBN, from NISAL, from the federal government in general, including the 774,000 jobs that under KMO, they are proposing to provide. So what we can encourage them to do is to do a whole lot more of that, because it has to be all hands on board, you know, struggling to ensure that this economy doesn't go into a black hole, into a downturn, from which you may be unable to recover the economy. And in fact, even the banks and the structured financial sector are also feeling the pinch. Many of the banks aren't booking new loans now, because again, even if they book the new loans, how are you sure about the performance of the loans? How are you sure that the money is going to come back to you? Because the business is not just there to do, only a few sectors. And yesterday I was looking at the Financial Times, and they were talking about the 100 businesses that have done very well globally. A lot of them maybe belong in the pharmaceutical sector because, of course, it's sick season and people are buying drugs and all of that. You know, and of course, then you are limited to that. And of course, you could see e-education, electronic education, companies involved in online education doing well, e-health, companies involved in telemedicine doing well. And of course, the rest are the big companies like Amazon and all of that. Those guys are well positioned. They are tech companies. They have a reach into everybody's pocket. So, but back to Nigeria, I would suggest that perhaps what we should be doing is to try to reimagine the economy from the ground up and say, we've got 200 million people. How well are we providing for these people? Food, shelter, clothing, the basics, all right? Water, electricity, the basics. So, and this is a good time for us to be able to reflect on that and have a big meeting and say, okay, how are we going to provide this for our people? How are we going to ensure that, if things go on a downturn, maybe again, or even in this period that we are, that our people are not hitting rock bottom immediately. Because unfortunately, a lot of businesses are closed down. A lot of businesses are still going to close down. If this extends for a little bit longer, it's going to be tough for Nigeria to cope. And that means that millions of Nigerians are losing their jobs, like Mr. Chukwu said. As a matter of fact, 41 million, according to Smedan, there are 41 million micro, small, and medium scale, businesses in Nigeria. 41 million, or even up to 43 million of such businesses. And meaning that a lot of Nigerians are in that sector. A lot of the employment is in that sector. How are they going to cope? How have they been coping? For how long can they continue to hold their breath? Then after which we can now say, okay, fine. If we can limit the fall of the GDP this year, if we can manage the economy at a certain plateau, if perhaps it's going to be the best we can achieve, if we're going to manage the economy at a certain plateau, then maybe in 2021 we'll be looking at, okay, fine. If this all blows over, how much of growth can we achieve? And how inclusive will that growth be? Before now, we're talking about financial inclusion. In fact, I was thinking in terms of, perhaps we're thinking of economic inclusion. So financial inclusion actually talks about how many people have accounts, because we believe that if they have accounts, then it's easy, even if the government was doing cash transfer. If government says, listen, we're giving every poor person 5,000 naira today, and you don't have an account to receive that, what do? Of course, they can also give you cash, but it's neater if the government can transfer to you. Everybody has a BVN, and you can just do a single transfer and reach out to them. Even if government has to print and spend, this is the point where we are right now today. That even if government has to print and spend, we're in emergency. All right, so that's financial inclusion. But economic inclusion is what we should think about. When graduates leave school and don't have work to do and are losing jobs right now, that means they're taking out of the economy a lot of people. Millions of Nigerians are surviving on handouts. They're calling family, we can't feed yesterday, there's no food in the house, and all of that. So that's social capital, which we're feeding on. But in a matter of time, even those who have a little will begin to draw back and say, listen, I can't continue like this, just giving so much money out every day. And of course, that's when you see the social capital turning down. So I think, again, it's back to, encouraging government, because, again, government is back. One of the things we noticed the moment COVID came on board was, listen, in this season, one of the things is that government is back. Government is back everywhere. Government is back. A lot of private sector people are going to be talking about government, as the government should do this and do this for us. In the UK, for example, Virgin Airlines had to go back to government to get a bailout. All over the world, big companies are getting bailouts again. So it's just the sign of the times. It's wartime, different kind of war, but war all the same, So we're going to be going back to government and say, listen, how much more can you do? One of the things we've pointed out in the past is also that whereas the Nigerian government has taken some initiatives, but if we compare to what many other countries, especially in the Western world, have done, by GDP, we haven't done a lot, okay? Like in the US, that if they're talking about 15% of their GDP, in the US, if US GDP was 20 billion, the US is ready to roll out about 3.5, I'm talking about trillion rather, roll about 3.5 trillion to incentivize the economy. And this is an economy that's already been established. So this is a time for us to break the bank and say, hey, what can we do? How can we rescue our people from food poverty, basic stuff like that? How can we ensure that at least we begin to think about the kind of houses that they live in, that is going to create some jobs as well, reorganize stuff. I like the initiative with Keyamo, if we can focus really on the environment. But I was thinking about how it will work, because 1,000 people in Lagos mainland, employed in Lagos mainland local government, is not the same as 1,000 people employed in a local government in Gusau. So, but of course, this is policy. It's not going to be perfect. Okay, you're probably going to need a lot more people in Lagos, in Ibadan, in Onitsha, in Port Harcourt, in Kano, in Maiduguri, for example, in Sokoto metropolis, than you would need in many other small local governments in Nigeria. So that 1,000, homogeneous kind of figure may not be entirely efficient. I hope they're able to look into that and recalibrate it, but we need to deal with these factors: our environment, our agricultural sector, our water sector. The last time I checked, there's nowhere in Nigeria where you can turn the tap and get government water, maybe apart from maybe Abuja. Most of the state, the water systems have broken down since they were built in the 70s and 80s and so on. So basic things like that. This is the time for us to deal with the human factor, okay? The human factor, because no matter what we do, no matter what we say about the economy, it's down to the human factor. This is the time for us to improve the livelihoods of the average Nigerian on the streets so that they can be stronger and produce more. So that, I'll now round up very quickly, so that that man on the street that you spoke about, Nota, who is selling something by the roadside, the challenge for him really is not to continue to sell the 500 naira or 5,000 naira wares that he's selling. The challenge for us as an economy is to produce a lot more so that the 5,000 naira things he's selling, he can improve capacity to 50,000, to 100,000, so that in fact there'll be less people like him on the roadside. Things will be a bit more structured. His children can go to school and become something of them, themselves. That is it. So, as an economy, we're not producing nearly enough to meet the challenges of the moment. We're not producing nearly enough to incentivize our people to do a lot more and to be more profitable in whatever it is to do. We're not producing nearly enough.
Thank you. Talking about production, we're not producing nearly enough. But suddenly Nigeria is producing gold bars. Would that in any way help if we begin to look at the natural resources we have besides oil? Would that help to stabilize? Tokwe talked about stabilizing the economy as against growing the economy. But we'll look at all of that with these two gentlemen. We'll come back from this break. Do stay with us. Now, in the course of this week, the president received a gold bar from the CBN, part of the federal government, is it presidential artisanal initiative to improve the mining processes in the country. To also, but so that means we've been producing some of these things unofficially. Is it an attempt to formalize the production of some of these things? But hey, we still have Justin Chukwu and Tokwe Fashoa here, and Alero has a question she wants to start off with. Alero.
Yes, Mr. Chukwu, the president recently reviewed our budget. Of what benefit is that to what we're talking about now? Is that going to help us grow our economy? Or what was the purpose of that exercise?
I think the primary purpose why the government reviewed the budget is to inject more liquidity into the economy, to adopt what we call a expansionary budget, to actually spend more than it can generate. And the concept is that when you put more money into the system, you are able to provide income to the citizens, so that those who would have lost their income from the formal employment will have alternative sources of income. And I think that's what the government tried to do. Basic thing here, what countries have done in the past is that if the economy goes into a recession or a depression, they spend out of that recession by spending money on public works, giving out contract to do roads, housing projects, schools. So a lot of people will now earn income, begin to spend. As they spend, those who are producing those items they buy will start producing. So that's a route to stimulating an economic recovery. Okay. And I think that's what informed the government decision to now increase the budget to 10.8 trillion naira, a deficit of almost 5 trillion naira. In fact, more than 5 trillion naira, because the revenue is about 5.8 trillion. So you're talking about a deficit of about 5.3 trillion. So the basic thing they are looking at that we have to basically print money. Apart from what they're borrowing, of course, they've gotten access to borrow about $5.5 billion. They also have a provision of about 850 billion naira borrowing plan. But beyond that, they will also spend by asking the central bank by borrowing from the central bank, which is basically to print money. That could lead to an uptick in inflation as we are seeing. But ultimately, the purpose is to ensure that government is spending on those small things that people can earn income. They will now go into beyond what they had planned to do. And I'm hoping that now that the budget has been signed into law, they will implement it. If you look at, for instance, the Economic Sustainability Report, where they made provision about 2.3 trillion naira expenditure, 1.1 trillion is coming from central bank. One of the key components that I expect the government to activate immediately to save the economy from further going into deeper recession is what they call survival fund. Among the four pillars they have for survival fund. The survival fund is supposed to be used to pay salaries of private sector employees who, during this period of COVID-19, are not in a position to pay their workers' salaries, so that those people cannot go hungry. And that is supposed to come from the budget. It's beyond what they had planned earlier at the point the budget was prepared last year.
Because there was no COVID then.
Because there was no COVID. They also have a provision there to support the small and medium-scale enterprises, where those who are producing like face masks, sanitizers, the government will create an off-taker arrangement for them. So once they produce, the government will buy from them. So that was also not in the budget. The expenditure we are doing on health care was not in the budget. I mean, significant part of it was not in the budget. So those are what was necessary the government to increase the amount of the government expenditure in the budget. Because without that, the economy will go into a deeper recession.
But
Mr. Fashua, this survival fund that he's talking about, have you heard anything about it? Has it been activated? Because we see on social media a lot of people who are crying out to the public that they have not been paid for several months and people should please contribute to their survival.
For example, the private school teachers is one of this particularly badly hit demographic in our society today. A lot of the private schools, they haven't paid. And many times, a lot of the SMEs that we talk about, I mean, I'm sorry, our people are just like that sometimes. You don't even think about how your workers are surviving. You can't even say, okay, listen, let me pay you 30% or 50% of your salary. Yeah, the boss just sorts himself out. Everybody just walks away because, again, the business structure and the business model is very, very fragile. Remember that most of what we do is based on importation of machinery, importation of equipment, and, of course, importation of merchandise itself. So, okay, for example, the moment the international logistics seized up, there was a time that even ships weren't moving. You couldn't even import stuff and bring it into the country. So what do? Everybody goes home. And even if you imported, what happened was you were not selling. So I think that, of course, there's a bit of education for the average Nigerian CEO to say that, look, the new challenge before you is not about looking good for the camera, but how well do you do with carrying along and showing a human face to your staff? So this initiative by government is a new one that hasn't been activated as far as I know, but they have already started to talk about it, like Mr. Johnson said. It also formed part of the budget and part of the deficit, the huge deficit that the budget is carrying right now. It's a great initiative, like I said. Look, the government cannot do nearly enough. However, we have to continue to encourage them to do more and more and more, because until this war is over, it's not over. In fact, the economic aspect, we should ensure that it does not become a cancer. So whereas we're fighting the COVID on the health sector, on the health aspect, but the economic aspect can become a huge cancer, a huge, a metastasizing cancer that continues to just expand and take a lot of people down. Imagine that millions will lose their jobs, and after a while, if they don't have food to eat, what do? They get on the streets. And when they get on the streets, it gets very messy, because the government is also going to react and say, listen, we're doing everything we can. So before you know it, the mobile police people start to shoot. And so you don't want to get into a scenario like that. Apart from that, communication is very key to let the people continue to know this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, and how we need your cooperation as well. So it has to come from both sides. So it's a great initiative that the government is coming up with to say, listen, we can also help you to pay salaries, but they have to be careful. A lot of the SME CEOs will collect that money and just pocket it and not call their people back. As a matter of fact, a lot of people that were asked to work from home in the beginning, the moment they say, okay, you know what, work from home, the next thing is the next month they tell you, listen, sorry, we can't do anything for you. Or they just stop communicating with you, then you're off the payroll. So, but this callousness is going to come back to us. So we have to be careful. Life is not as cut and dried as just telling people to buzz off. But listen, this is a global problem that's going on. We all have to work together. So government has to be very methodical. Another thing that, I thought we were going to speak about this initiative of GSI, Global Standing Instruction, which the central bank is also putting together about, ensuring that if they give loans to people, it is tied to their other accounts. So that's a way of building, personal finance and personal credit culture from the ground up, and I think it's something that, if it does take off, I'm in support of. Everything must be done from the credit perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, from an economic, general perspective. I talk about economic inclusion of our people. Everything must be done at this moment to ensure that this economy doesn't spiral into a deeper recession. Thank you.
Okay, Tokwe, I'll start off with you and come back to Mr. Chukwu here. That thing about being productive, yes, the government will have to some extent, print to spend, but we have resources. I mean, Nigeria has about 44 mineral deposits, including gold, iron ore, coal, tin, zinc, in more than 500 locations. I mean, someone even mentioned this morning that Nigeria has the main resource needed for the making of computer motherboards. So at the end of the day, with this kind of mineral resources that we have, some of them illegally mined for many years now, suddenly the CBN is presenting the president with a gold bar, 12.5 kilograms that the CBN bought at, let me get that figure correct, 268 million naira for a 12.5 kilogram gold bar. Now, what if we're able, check out that bar, what if we're able to focus, and now the federal government is talking about building the mining industry in Nigeria from a 0.3% contribution to the GDP to at least 3.5 or thereabout in 5 years. How feasible is that? Would that help in any way?
Oh, by all means, it will help. The component of mobile phones that you mentioned is called coltan, columbite and tantalite. It's in Nigeria here, somewhere, anywhere in all those areas like Jos, like Taraba, like all of that. You know, I mean, and usually, well, without being, in politics, what we see is we've got some Indians and some Chinese people who come, and what they do is they get these artisans to go into these mines and bring this stuff out for them, including the gold. You know, there's a gold belt, like a line, more like, that comes from the south of Nigeria and goes to the north. That's why you will see some gold in Osun State, in Ife and Co. And if you trace that same line, that's what goes to Zamfara. And if you remember that in Zamfara, a lot of children were getting lead poisoning as a result of illegal mining of gold. All right. So now I think what the government is doing is to try and formalize that. You have even things like barite. Barite is also available in Benue State, in Plateau State, and barite is used in oil drilling. And in fact, part of the challenge is our oil sector. A lot of the international oil companies, they prefer to import the barite than to use our own local barite. So we got all these challenges. And of course, whereas I don't believe all we should do is dig in the ground and bring out all these materials and just sell them, or these minerals and sell them, I believe that we should try and add value to whatever it is we bring. And I think that's what the government is trying to do now. I think what we're trying to do with the gold initiative is to displace some of the illegal middlemen who used to come and push our people into the bush to go and get some of these things for them. They were not actually very clear about how that gold was refined, because the last time I knew there was a lady that was trying to set up a gold refinery in Nigeria. I'm not sure whether they've completed that project. Some of these things take time. Okay, and that was just before COVID. And so, however, one way or the other, this gold bar has been pieced together. And the economics about gold is that right now, gold price is skyrocketing in the international market because in an environment like this, people are losing confidence in currencies in general. And therefore say, listen, no matter how well the US dollar is doing, it's good to hold some gold, because if the entire global economy collapses, at least we can fall back on gold. We can go, perhaps the world will go back to what they call the gold standard. So this initiative is a very good initiative, in the sense that at least it calls attention back to our mineral resources, it calls attention back to what we have, it calls attention back to the need to add value to what we have. It tries to displace some of the informal, illegal arrangements that have been going on there, including, like I said earlier, the issue of lead poisoning to our children in Zamfara State and elsewhere, and tries to formalize the economy. So it's a good one. And I think that they should also take the same initiative for a lot of other, if you like, minerals in the solid mineral sector of this economy.
Okay, Mr. Chukwu, that process, is it something that can be picked up real quick?
Well, part of it could be you have to come up with a strategy that is both short-term and long-term. But I'm always an apostle that if you want to build an economy, you have to go for the long-term process. One, the central bank said, the government said the central bank will provide centers for offtake of or buying of such gold. And then they will also work towards setting up a refining industry to refine the gold. So the basic thing is that the artisans will have who to offload the gold to at standard market prices. So it wouldn't be that they will be looking for who to smuggle it, or you won't have some smuggler coming in and taking the gold from them. And because you're going to have some level of formalization, the issues about people mining illegally will to some extent be addressed.
But, let me just interrupt you there, if you don't mind. The question of why, first of all, we started out with just oil, and now we're going for gold. It appears that we're going for gold, one item. Wouldn't it be nice to spread and get all of this at once?
You know, there's a Ministry of Solid Minerals whose primary objective is to develop the solid mineral sector. And it's
To
not
develop
just...
or to map out?
No, to develop. I mean, totality. Mapping is just an integral part of that development process. You have to map up the cadastral zones and then obviously concession them and then get those people licensed to mine each of these solid minerals.
Mine and refine, or just mine?
Yeah, one, mine. Two is refine. But it's all about development, entire developmental chain. But like I did say earlier, one of the things that is lacking is that a lot of our processes are so ad hoc in nature. And therefore, now we don't look at the integrated nature of what we need to do. And I want to take us back to the history of this country. Gold mining actually started in Nigeria in 1903 in the north, and in 1904 in the southern protectorate. So the British government actually set up an agency to supervise gold mining in the north in 1903, and then south a year after. But go back to how Britain governed Nigeria and what happened. Some of the infrastructure development they had here was driven by raw materials that were meant for the British markets. The rail line that runs from Port Harcourt to Enugu was built solely to export coal. It was extended to Jos to export tin from Jos. And what did they do? Immediately they built the evacuation infrastructure. It became possible for that mining activity to actually take place. Because if you had mined the gold and you needed people to carry them on their head or bicycles because they didn't have good roads then, that mining process wouldn't have been effective. So what is lacking is that, are we building integrated infrastructure to support some of these raw materials? Take, for instance, a place like Kogi State, where you have a lot of limestone deposits. By now, in any other country, we have a standard gauge rate that runs from Kogi to the southern seaports and the western seaports. We've not built that. Today, Dangote is trying to export cement, but we don't have a mechanism to export bulk cement in the country because we've not built bulk export terminals. Those are the reasons why other countries are progressing. We're moving at the slow speed because the key thing we have to think development in an integrated format. It's not just enough that they produce the gold. Where are we going to refine the gold? If you buy the gold off them and export them today, you have a lot of granite mining in the country. There's no single granite refining plant in the country. We cut the granite in huge slabs, send them out of the country, refine them, and bring them back to the country at a very expensive price. So why have we not been able to do that? There are a lot of granite deposits in Edo State, Ondo State, along that corridor. What's the evacuation method? Have we built power plants to support the process of setting up such refining plants near the point of raw material? So that, because without power, you really can't cut those stones.
You know, Mr. Chukwu, the amount of resources in this country, amazing. Cross River State has some of the most unique trees you can ever find around the world in Cross River State, apart from the mineral deposits they have there. But Igmosa says there is a huge economy in the COVID crisis. It takes creativity and innovative thinking to benefit from it. This is the best time to attract foreign direct investment in all of these areas we've talked about. But as we wind down now, let me begin with you, Tokwe. Closing notes on, let's look at the loan situation. As we wind down, what can we do with that new idea that the idea that the CBN, you mentioned it earlier, the GIS thing, is it GSI?
Yes.
Oh, well, the GSI thing, from what I've seen, well, it's a new initiative, really, because one would have thought with the hoopla around it recently that it was something that was backdated, that they would start to net off even past loans and all of that, from one bank account to the other. But what I've read so far, for such to work, there has to be a GSI mandate that will be signed by a borrower ab initio to say you have a right as a bank to take money from any of my accounts in any other bank, before this will work. So that alone means that it's going to be a difficult policy. It's controversial. But again, if a customer would append the GSI mandate and say that you can take money from any of my other accounts, then so be it. When Nigerians are resisting, and I can see a lot of lawyers dusting up their papers, this cannot work and all of that, but then the simple question is to ask someone is, why would you want to borrow money from one bank and not pay and have money in other banks? And so one other thing I'd like to see about that GSI is also the process by which it will be affirmed that someone has actually borrowed and has refused to pay, so that you can initiate the trigger, the GSI trigger. I didn't see that process there. Is it immediately
good to weigh in on this?
Due?
Tokwe, thank you. Mr. Chukwu, in 10 seconds, I heard we were out of time.
Okay, I think one of the things we need to do is have an integrated identification management system, so that when you fail to pay your loan, you cannot borrow elsewhere. That's what happens in other countries. And that keeps people in checks. You can't borrow money from Bank A and go to Bank B if you have a bad credit record. People do everything on earth to make sure they keep their good credit record. We must have that. We must also enforce the bankruptcy law, so that when people are unable to pay their debt, you declare them bankrupt.
Okay,
We don't
thank
have
you.
credit ratings in this country. That's the problem.
We do, but they're not using it. Good. Thank you very much. Tokwe Fast Round Economists joined us from our Abuja studio, and Mr. Johnson Chukwu, Managing Director, Cowrie Asset Management Limited. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Sunrise will be back in a moment. Do stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. Just before we get into the aviation conversation, Festus Akimboewa says FG should have stuck to the original Appropriation Act and borrowed to finance in order to support businesses and keep people in work. Although higher annual borrowing could cause a rise in the cost of borrowing and leave Nigeria vulnerable. And Ipomosa says we should also stimulate investments to support the construction sector. This sector is currently near closure.
Like many other sectors.
Finally, Okuntade says, what is happening to Ondo State huge bitumen deposit?
Question mark. Yes, now let's look at flight operations during COVID. Nigeria resumed domestic flights on Wednesday, 8th of July, after a hiatus of around 3 months, as the government relaxed restrictions aimed at curbing the spread of the new coronavirus. The airports for the capital, Abuja, and the commercial hub, Lagos, reopened for flights on that day, and some others have followed suit. No date has been decided yet for the resumption of international flights, but the picture of the first flight's cabin has left many wondering if indeed we are ready to open our skies without spreading the virus. Now, we have two experts in the studio with us this morning to look at this and to tell us how safe it is for us to be flying during the pandemic. It's my pleasure to welcome the immediate past president of the National Association of Nigeria Travel Agencies, Mr. Bankole Bernard. Good morning. And we also have Mr. Tayo Ojuri with us, who's an aviation expert.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for being with us. I am a bit fazed because of all the protocols that were read to us by the presidential committee, and we actually saw demonstrations of all that, and to hear that we are still at risk. I mean, some of us are taken aback by that kind of conclusion. You, sir, are of the Association of Travel Agencies. What are your thoughts about those protocols, and what are the reasons why they don't seem to be effective? Well, why some people do not think that they will be effective?
Well, good morning, viewers. I think the government just needs to do a bit more of awareness and alleviate the fears that people have. I've had the opportunity to experience the protocol that has been put in place, and I think it's sound, and I think it's of international standard. Mind you, Nigeria is not working in isolation. We're working with reputable bodies in guiding us in getting all these things done. You know, I mean, to let you know, our airport is the member of ACI. You know, Airports Council International. So, which means that there are certain protocols laid down, policies that we have followed, and we have done all that. So where's the fear coming from? Yeah, you must agree with me that there will always be a human factor because it is Nigeria, or we're known not wanting to do things right. I mean, but we must learn to give benefit of doubt and, you know, just learn to follow the processes that they've laid on ground. Everywhere at the airport has been marked. The
But Mr.
question now
Bernard,
is the attitude of the people.
Mr. Bernard, this is Nigeria.
Yes, please.
Do you know who I am?
Well,
In quotes, that is there. And those the minister spoke about in the course of this week were, do you know who I am? Big men.
we actually raised that, and this is unacceptable anywhere in the world.
But
I
they
mean,
will follow those protocols abroad.
But they don't do that outside the country. So why must it be done here? Is it because we're in Nigeria? I think we've gotten to a point where it must not be free for all. I mean, if you're a VIP, respect the law of the land. It doesn't make you above the law. There are processes, and we must learn to follow those protocols. That's just the way it is. Why must you show off at the airport, really, that I'm the ex-governor and so? I mean, it doesn't show maturity as far as I'm concerned. I think that's what we need to really address to stand
I understand
around.
he's come out, the ex-governor has come up to say he's not, that's not true, that he's a law-abiding citizen of this country, and I'm sure one of these days we'll get him to come and tell us what exactly happened at the airport. But meanwhile, FAN, that's the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, was invited to this conversation today, but no official was available. So in the course of the week, and we'll bring them in later, as well as officials of private airlines, we hope to get them to come in and also tell us what their plans are and what's happening and all of this. Because the question of the airport, the cabins being practically empty, cancelled flights, and all of that comes into play, especially as it regards cost. Because the reason why a lot of people didn't get to the airport is the cost. The fares have gone up.
Yes, the fares have gone up, but how much of up and what difference it is? And I have to actually be realistic where the rubber meets the road. I was brave, one of the brave ones that went on the first flight on July 8th. And talking about the processes, like, just to reiterate what Bankole said, was actually put in place, that process from the drop-off to the dissentation of your bags and the check-in process. It was in compliance and adherence to COVID-19 protocols. Now,
Worldwide.
yes, worldwide. We're not in isolation.
Yeah.
We're working in tangent with WHO and ICAO standards, and it was complied with. The concerns that were raised, however, was what the passengers said. We were social distancing on ground, where you had this space, but when we got on the aircraft, we had to sit with 3 in a row, which is the normal sitting process.
Ouch.
That's where the cost perspective comes from. Yes, the reality on ground is, yes, we actually have been, we've actually have HAPA electrostatic cleaning for the aircraft. We have the HAPA purified air filter. You have the sanitations of the public places. All that has been put in place. And the crew, the flight crew as well, have the PPEs on to actually reduce the rate of contamination. All that put in place, there is a cost to the operations.
Yeah.
there are lots of underlying costs to the operations of domestic and even international airline. We've heard it before. Airline business is highly capital intensive, is highly volatile, once there's a shock to the economy, we actually are the first to catch cold. We were the first to catch cold when the sneeze came from COVID-19, and now we've actually not gotten out of the cold. So starting out on the domestic, yes, there was a bit of increase. To answer your question about the increase. Yes, but what was it prior to this time? We've simulated those numbers. Prior to this time, it was between 26,000 to 28,000. And it depends on when you buy.
Exactly. I was
When you buy is a huge factor to how the price of your ticket, what the price of the ticket is. So that being said, the time for takeoff, the opening of the airlines, and the time the government, I'm talking about time government gave the takeoff, and the time the airlines started selling was an ample time to market those tickets. So once you have ample time to market, you actually have a cheaper
fares.
cheaper
And you
fare.
buy early.
You buy early, you have the opportunity to gain.
Yeah.
So that's where people are saying about the price. And 10 days is not enough time scientifically to do an objective research and assessment of how the business is done. Yes, the truth is that, and it's been said even prior to opening, that we are going to have a very reduced passenger traffic. Because yes, we can uncouple COVID-19 from the economy. Economy is a driver of aviation. Aviation sector is a major factor that indicates the leading or the lagging part of the economy. Once the economy is buoyant, aviation is buoyant. Exactly. People will travel. It's a function of disposable income. So we see the VP said on Tuesday that we actually lost 40% of our revenue. With 40% gone of our revenue, it affects people traveling.
Okay. Mr. Ojuri, approximately how much will an economic seat cost now from here to Abuja?
What I had to pay was 33,000 naira for a return fare. So it was 66,000 naira and change.
Okay, if you consider that because they cannot carry a full load, they can only carry what? 60%?
No, you're still open. I did emphasize that you're still sitting three.
Yes. But
it's up to the airline.
We heard about some who didn't.
Yes.
Some airlines did not carry full load and they adhered to the social distancing also in the flight.
Yes.
So if they're forced to carry fewer passengers, it therefore follows that they have to increase the fare of those who are willing to fly.
Naturally, but there's a limit to which you can increase your fare.
Who is limiting that?
It's a function of demand and supply. Once you cannot fly from Lagos to Abuja. You cannot, no matter how much the cost of your operations, you cannot actually price it at about 120, right? For example, hypothetically, at 120.
Because nobody is going to buy that ticket.
Nobody is going to buy. So it's being realistic and it's a function of the science. There's a science to the ticket price. It's a yield factor. And that's maybe where Bamkule will come in because he's on the downstream sector of where the tickets are sold. So whether that price is fixed and how it's fixed is a function of lots of things. The time of the day, the season,
day of the week.
It's a function of that. So even if you actually skip your middle seat, there's still a price to which you can
you cannot go above.
You cannot go over, and there's still a price which you can sell your tickets.
Okay, Bankole.
There are certain things we need to understand here, because I followed all through while we're working towards this restart, and the government didn't give any directive on social distancing in the aircraft. So we must understand that.
Okay.
And there is no need for social distancing. It's a commercial decision. So if an airline, based on the number of passengers to fly out at that particular point in time, they're very few, then you can social distance them.
Yeah.
There's no big deal in that, because anyway, why pack all of them together in one place when there's so much space? So there's no big deal. But if you have a full flight, everybody should sit accordingly and let the flight be full and let the airline operate effectively.
Banker,
They're
let me-
all wearing
sorry,
their
let me- let me-
masks,
let me
aren't they?
ask you this question.
Yeah, they wear their mask at that particular point
Let
in
me
time.
ask this question. I mean, some would wonder if I'm walking on the road. I mean,
Yes.
I'm outside my house and I'm told I must wear a mask
Exactly.
and still social distance. How would you say that there is no need for social distancing in the aircraft?
And I will explain this to you, and that's part of the reason why I said we just need the government to do more of awareness so that people understand how this thing works.
Okay.
Because in the aircraft, at that level, the aircraft has been disinfected. Not only has it been disinfected, the air there is purified. It's purified. So it's not like when you're on the streets. You know, it's carbon air. So we need to understand that. But an average man on the street...
So, you know what? Can you take us through the process? The flight comes in before
Yes.
it's boarded.
Yes.
What's done to purify the air? And remember, the doors are open for people to get in, so air is moving in and out. So please educate us and educate the people out there. What are those things that are being done, or what's going on to ensure that the air stays purified until we go airborne and then land?
Okay, this is it. While the aircraft is on ground, the normal thing is they come in and clean up the aircraft, disinfect the aircraft to the best way they could. Now, once you've done that, just the way you go to an office and you use your hand sanitizer, do you carry the sanitizer all through while you're in the office? Of course you don't. Once you've done that, you believe that you've done the appropriate thing before going in, and make sure that you stay as clean as possible so that you don't have to, because this thing, we all need to understand it very well. And the moment that has been done, remember that the passengers too have been they've gone through some protocols and purifying process where they sanitize their hands, make sure that everything is clean before going into the aircraft. So once you get into the aircraft, you are to sit on the seats allocated to you, with minimal contact with the cabin crew. You sit down. It's a short flight. They're not serving food. They're not serving anything. So everybody walks out normally just the way, because by the time the aircraft gets in the air, the air has been purified. So there's no virus that can survive under that climate, which they made clear to us. Or maybe the government now needs to put it in different Nigerian languages and let people understand that, look, you are safe flying in the air and you don't have
So,
to...
you wanted to say
That
something?
would help.
Yes, where the rubber meets the road, and this is without being too scientific, it's electromagnetic distillation, because the aircraft, like we know, cannot just be fumigated with
Yes.
any type of... So it's electromagnetic when it's on ground. And then when it comes up, the upper air purifying system actually is there in the same air quality which you have in the hospitals. And actually in theaters and surgeries.
Yes,
The same
ICU.
quality of air.
Okay.
So you have that. And once it goes up, there's the change of air. Once you're, depending on the altitude, there's the change of air. Lastly, the way sitting arrangement within the aircraft helps us a lot. The air comes from the top, where it's all seated facing forward, and the way the air circulates actually does not ensure that there's distancing, and the way people would say, yeah, it's the same air, but obviously the same air that goes down from up down and goes out and gets recycled. So that there's a science to it, which we won't get into the nitty-gritty of that now, but it's to ensure, educate, and give people the comfort that it's safe to fly.
Okay. All right, we'll take a moment and we'll come back to continue this conversation around aviation safety and how to make it easier within the pandemic. We're back with that. Just stay with us. Thank you very much. We're still having this conversation around the airport. Yes, we had some very somewhat technical conversation before that break. Talked about the air is purified steady. You don't need to panic. You don't need to fear, because the process of air coming in and going out is such that there is no mix. Sounds high up there, but it's simple. But there's this question for you. Nigerian youth Sir Attenborough says, do you purify the air coming out of the lungs if passengers
The lungs of passengers.
while in the air?
Because the air coming out is purified, and what you breathe in is not
the
same.
purified
So
air.
it's been purified. It's just very simple.
I think another side to this coin is the fact we should realize that life itself is a risk, and how much of that risk has been mitigated. I think that's the other side conversation we should be having. We've simulated that process. We actually, and part of that simulation is it started on the 8th. Not all airports actually opened on the 8th. It was staggered until all the airports actually, after inspection, now opened on the 15th. So it's to ensure that the process is actually being addressed. And then when there are gaps, those gaps are actually addressed. And over and beyond that, it's a dynamic process. Once we address or we see that there's a challenge in the system, we're able to address it.
But stay with you.
Yes.
Chukwude Onwesikobi, I hope I got that well, is concerned that this is more like a commercial decision without consideration of the health implications. He's saying, hold on, he's about this air purification thing, hold on. He's concerned that, okay, there are people that are asymptomatic. So they come into that flight, you don't know anything, and they're there with you. They might pass it on to this person who is. So how would that work in that kind of confined space? The HEPA purification system, you might need to explain that a little bit, and then let's understand how all of this would tie in.
If someone is asymptomatic, and we're actually talking about domestic here.
Yeah,
because
we're domestic flights. Yeah.
On the international, you have lots of people, you have to test before you fly. But in domestic, you don't have to test before you fly. So first, let me indicate this. The port health system is not just a decision by the airlines, not just a commercial decision. The port health, the regulators, World Health Organization, NCDC, and PTF, we're all involved in this process. It's not just a light bulb experience job hop one day. So that process was simulated, like I said, and then with the HAPA system, is the purified system. It's just like your air filter in your car. For the air condition, you change it once you go to services so that the air it doesn't pick up the dust. So that's how much I can explain. I'm not a doctor, neither am I an engineer. But what I know of the flight operations and airport operations, that process has been simulated, it's been tried and tested, and whereby someone is asymptomatic, is on board, the mask would prevent that to a great extent. And people they're not serving food, so there's mitigating that risk as well. And as well, actually when you board in batches, and when you disembark as well, you disembark in batches. There's lots of social distance. So the risk of you contacting or sitting close or catching that virus, it's actually reduced and mitigated.
Okay.
But
What
if
we've
you're
ensured,
sitting-
just the last line, what we've ensured is we don't want aviation to be a vector to the passing of COVID-19.
COVID-19.
But when you are in the aircraft and you're sitting 3 in a row, which is normal, you cannot but have contact with the person sitting next to you.
Yes, but it doesn't come through that.
Exactly.
People still elbow shake.
Yes.
That's not the form of transmission. Let's be realistic.
You
We're
said
talking about
contact. I'm just
When
talking.
you
There
talk,
is physical
We're talking
contact.
about talk. You remember you have
you
your
have the
face
mask.
mask. Do you understand? So you limit everything you have to do
Through
in
a
the-
short flight.
Through a short flight.
Okay, Nigerian youth is still talking here. He says the HEPA filters in a plane extract and recycle air, removing 99.9% of impurities and viruses every minute. It says, but that's on international flights. The question is, do domestic airlines use the same?
International aircraft and domestic
They are all-
airlines are
I was
the
gonna say,
same.
These are aircraft
Their
that
tax, it
everywhere
So
doesn't.
it's
around the world.
inbuilt.
Yes, it's inbuilt.
Okay, the question of the fares, you know, those who are concerned that the fares have gone up and all of that. So how does that work, you being an agent?
Well, from what we have seen, the fares have not gone up. The fares are still the same. The only thing that has changed is the rate of exchange, because dollar has been devalued, to an extent. And remember, everything in aviation is dollar denominated.
Yes.
So we must understand that. But to a common man is saying that, oh, I'm paying a little bit more. The only reason you're paying a little bit more is that
You're paying more for the dollar.
for the dollar. That's just what has happened. Because if you actually see an increase in the airfare, what you're actually paying is not what you should be paying. That's just the honest truth. And the airlines, remember, they survive on two major factors, either yield or volume. So they need the volume to be there for them to make money, especially on the short-haul flights. It's driven by the volume. So
but
we
Mr.
need
Bernard,
more people.
The volume is not there right now, resulting in some flights being cancelled. We know of a lot of flights which were cancelled in the course of the week for lack of.
On Thursday, on Wednesday, flights to Kaduna were cancelled. Flights to Maiduguri Airport were also cancelled.
Yes, when you look at those routes, I don't want us to attach sentiments because we're experiencing COVID-19 now. Let us not attach sentiments. Naturally, every day, commercial decision flights are being cancelled for one reason or the other. Flights are being cancelled every day. And when you look at this route that you're talking about Kaduna, Maiduguri, if they cannot have enough passengers to go on that flight, they might probably cancel that flight due to commercial decision, because the cost to operate that flight, they have to be able to mitigate it. And that is the truth. But if you see Lagos, even Lagos, Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, at times are being cancelled when you go to the airport in the afternoon. They will cancel it and merge it with the one that will go in the evening because they could see that the numbers are low. Or I'm yet to see an airline cancel the very first flight for the day.
The other side of it, how much of communication exists between the airlines and their passengers?
Oh, trust me, quite a lot. SMS, through the travel agents, quite a lot. But you see, the question now is, are the passengers paying attention to this like they should? If they do, they will be notified. And that's the professional thing to do.
So, Jerry?
The truth and the reality of this, this is evidence-based science, statistics to show for it. IATA numbers, Boeing and Airbus have said, once we even start up, the numbers are not going to be pre-COVID-19 numbers. Yeah. So cancellation, passenger throughput, passenger traffic numbers is what we see, and it's the reality on ground. This is still further going to actually reduce. From what we saw starting on July 8th, we saw a spike, which was due to those that were stuck at home or separated from family prior to this time. And now they had finished what they need to do. Moving forward, we still have business lots. We did a simulation or review of 15 companies on the Nigerian Stock Exchange and all the multinational companies in Nigeria. There's still restriction on travel for their staff.
In fact, many of them have not fully gone back to work.
Yeah. So if there's restriction on travel, that's where the passengers come from. Yeah. Another where the passengers come from is government. Government actually, business in Abuja, government offices are not fully open. The PTF said it can only have meetings for 4 people in a meeting. So that driver is not there. Schools are not open. The boarding school students have to travel sometimes. So that's part of our driver as well. So all this international airports are not open. 30% of our domestic passengers come from international feeder flights. Yeah. So all that put in place is where our passenger numbers, which is 8 million annually, and has been revolving around that. That's where it comes from. And once those other underlying factors are not actually fully optimized, it's going to affect passenger numbers. And that's the reality. We're going to see that decrease in third quarter, and probably once we get a vaccine, this is a game changer.
Yes.
Okay. Once we get a vaccine, credible and validated vaccine, by end of third quarter, that would change the dynamics for us.
Okay,
we're looking forward to that.
Bernard, so how does your business survive in all of this? As travel agents, ticketing, protocol, and all of that is down the drain.
You've asked
your staff and all of that. So what's been going on?
You've asked $1 million question.
Okay, so give me the money.
we've all been working in anticipation of when business will peak. We've been at this since March, end of March, where we all had to go home. We had to close our offices and start working from home. So we've been working from home, hoping that April has gone, May has surfaced, nothing changed. June came, nothing changed. A bit of hope appeared in July by reopening the domain. So we're just living with that hope that things are just going to get better, because this is all we've been doing. I mean, I've been at this in the last 14 years. There's nothing else I know how to do other than get you on board to fly. So I'm more like just going to be appealing, to, and I understand the stand of the government without fear, because everywhere around the world, nobody is so quick at opening their airports. They want to make sure that, aviation is not responsible for transmitting this COVID-19.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be disastrous for any government to see aviation. And that's why we've seen all these international bodies put protocols in place that, look, if you can follow this protocol and ensure that this is done properly, then we will minimize the risk of this COVID-19 on the people. And that's the truth. We've had a couple of evacuation flights, if you look at it, and we've heard them coming back with about 300 passengers, 250-something passengers, and what have you like that. So the question now is, if we've been able to test through the evacuation flights, it means to a very large extent we've been able to put certain things in place. I mean, they are tested for COVID-19. If you're positive, you're not going to embark on that flight. So if you've been tested and you're free to fly, then you come here and we'll put all the normal protocols in place, then I think we're good. I think we want to go back to business.
Let's look at the industry holistically now. Aviation is only a small part of the hospitality. The other parts of it are still in lockdown. The hotels are not open. Which hotels are open?
I know some hotels in Lagos State that once you actually Lagos State and actually Abuja that was, yes, I can. The hotels, once you pass the Lagos State process and protocol for reopening, the safety processes, you're allowed to open.
Yes.
But you get to the...
It's just that restaurants are not open.
Restaurants are not.
So that people don't gather, because
so there's no sit-in.
Yes, you can't sit in. They cannot guarantee the safety yet, because we're talking about cutleries being used and all. So what's going to happen to all that? So they don't feel comfortable until they're able to, get beyond that hurdle. But right now, yes, hotels are open and they do a lot of takeaway. So they can do a la carte for you. I mean, make your food and you eat in your boat. Restaurants are not open, but hotels are open.
Okay, now this is in the area of speculation, but I'm sure you all are doing your projections already.
Yeah.
How soon do you think that this industry will pick up again? Because as far as I'm concerned, right now it's on life support.
Yes. Well, all things being equal, and this has been optimistic, I'm allowed to. This is being optimistic. We're looking at, as soon as the international flight kicks off, we start, Nigeria is an import-dependent country, and a lot of traders, go to and fro on a regular basis, which translates to economy, and you see people doing business. We see the airlines coming back to full-fledged business, translate to the hoteliers having regular guests at their hotels. Because, if I go to Abuja now, I can't have a house in Abuja, then have a house in Port Harcourt and any other place I have. So which means I have to use those facilities. So as long as I'm able to ferry myself to those places, I will have to use it. And so applied to a lot of passengers as well. So all things being equal, we're looking at end of August. We're being hopeful. We're being hopeful.
Isn't that being overly optimistic?
That is,
Well,
you
End
just
of, I
read
thought
my
you,
mind.
I thought you were going to say end of the year.
I can't say end of the year. I'll be
looking for
shooting
money.
myself in the leg.
Well, we've been realistic, and this is numbers to buttress us. I'm looking at second quarter of 2021.
Oh my God.
So why do I say that? We're not independent of the economy. Aviation, yeah, there'll be people that are traveling, but let's see where the rubber meets the road. Even if I'm traveling, you go and buy, where's the disposable income for most Nigerians that are buying? Manufacturing is down. The evacuation flights, if I was able to actually monitor some of them, most of the Indian that were evacuated because some of the companies shut
paid.
down. So for them to pick up, those other parts need to start actually running on 6 engines before aviation actually picks up, in my opinion. And this is data to buttress it. We're not just an independent. Aviation is driven by lots of things. Government has actually reduced budget.
That is expected. And remember, the budget has to do with the entire economy.
Yes.
But you see, if you've studied the trend very well, you've seen that we've had a couple of evacuation flights,
Yes.
both in and out. As a matter of fact, it has come to stay on the regular basis, almost every 1-2 flights every week now.
Yes.
You know, so if we can have that, honestly, in my opinion, I'm not saying we should rush into opening the international flights, but when we monitor things, just the same way we did with the local flights, that we've been able to put all the necessary protocols in place. Once we've been able to put all the necessary protocols in place, and we have the port health officials doing dotting the I's and crossing the T's, we can actually open up international flights.
And I agree with you on that. But
because a lot depends on us. Look, I can say tomorrow if how I really want it to be. But guess what? I can't say tomorrow because
wishful thinking.
Yeah, it becomes a wishful thinking. But the most important thing is the fact that we need to get back to work. We need to get people engaged. Quite a lot of people are sitting idle, doing nothing.
And to
It's
corroborate
killing them.
that, Smart Flight says travel agencies are suffering. Believe me, our president has said it all. We need palliatives, he says.
Okay, we have to go, but let me just read this and then you give your closing statement. Nigerian youth again, this is about the filters. He says, and this to encourage the viewers and those who are willing to travel, says, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, HEPA filters capture 99.9% of particulate matter from the air, including fungi, bacteria, and viruses from 0.1 to 0.3 micrometers in diameter. So as tiny as they are, the HEPA filters capture all of them.
99.9.
So just to encourage you to say, okay, relax. Just do the normal protocol and you're fine. I see you.
You are saying-
I see you.
I'm flying.
Please,
Because we need them to fly.
We
We need passengers to fly.
In other words,
If they
it is
don't,
quite safe.
Yes, it's quite safe.
Yes.
You need to echo that well.
Okay, then. So, in closing, Mr. Bernard,
Yes.
your final word.
Well, let me say this to our viewers. The aviation industry is right now is almost in comatose because the real users of most of the things in aviation are the passengers, which is always at the forefront. Which means that if the passengers are not flying, then every other thing in the industry will be at a stop. The ground handlers won't have any luggage to handle. The air traffic borders will have nothing because there are no flights. So we need to get, passengers need to come back and use,
fly.
because it saves time
Okay.
and it's
Mr.
safe.
Jury.
I think what COVID-19 has taught us, there's going to be, we've heard it so many times, there's now a new normal. So what will be a new normal for post-COVID-19 when the international flights happen is digitalization of that process, self-checking processes, as well as automation of that processes that would make it seamless and will reduce the contact.
Contacts.
Let me just read this tweet before, so that those who are listening, the authorities and all, can also explain this clearly. Onyeso Ogochukwu, who is a senior physiotherapist and health sciences researcher, says COVID-19 is transmitted through aerosolization of tiny droplets from patients' nasogastrics. Okay. So far, they can breathe, talk, laugh, sneeze, etc. There's nothing like air purification. Aircraft is just a vacuum pumped and fresh air recycled. That is not safe science-wise. So we need clarification, PTF and the aviation industry guys. Please clarify, clarify, clarify. But please, and all of that, wear your face mask.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bankole Bernard. He's immediate past president, National Association of Nigeria Travel Agencies. And Mr. Atayo Ojuru is an aviation expert. Thank you both very much for coming to shed more light on this for us and probably give our people more confidence. And remember that we also invited FAN, but no official was available to come to this program. But we hope to get them at some point, and we also hope to get the other, little pieces of this particular puzzle to come and talk to us in due course. Thank you very much for coming, gentlemen, and Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation in just a moment. We'll be looking at Third Mainland Bridge.
Thank you very much. Thank you for staying with us. Okay, so Third Mainland Bridge at 11.8 kilometers long is the longest of 3 road bridges crossing Lagos Lagoon.
In fact, at one time, it was the longest bridge in Africa.
Yeah.
At one time.
Yeah.
When it first opened, the Third Mainland Bridge relieved much of the heavy traffic and congestion that had been typical of Lagos in the 80s. Traffic moved faster and road communications around the city improved. Now, the federal government has announced another 6 months partial closure of the bridge for maintenance work expected to start on July the 24th. That won't be the first time that has happened. I mean, this will be like the 3rd time or thereabout that the bridge has received attention, so to speak. And then some others are asking, what's wrong with getting another bridge so that, we can reduce the pressure on this one? Or what's wrong with stopping a lot of people from going in that direction?
Well, there's talk about the 4th bridge. Yeah. It's still talk at the top
level.
Is there
also talk about moving some offices from there to mainland so that many of the people will stop moving that way?
But you know how we are in Nigeria. You must have a VI address to make you feel important.
Wow.
You must have an Ikoyi address. You must have a Lekki address.
Okay.
Come on, you know the way it is.
And I don't know Victoria Land.
Okay.
That's how it is now.
You must have heard the voice of the Federal Controller Works in Lagos, Engineer Olukayode Popola. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Also here is a Professor of Transportation and the Dean of the Institute of Transport at the Lagos State University, Professor Samuel Odewumi. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure, always.
Professor of Transportology.
That's a new word. There will be a faculty for that.
Okay.
And the very first professor of it.
You will get a copyright, a patent.
Well done. Let me start with you, Engineer Popola. What exactly is the plan? Third Mainland Bridge is going to be shut down, partially, as the case may be, from the 24th of July. Tell us why.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Please, make it in simple terms so that anybody can understand.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting us to this place. Third Mainland Bridge, we want to do some maintenance work. Normally, there are 3 types of maintenance. We have the routine maintenance, we have periodic maintenance, we have a special maintenance. Routine maintenance, it can just be probably after the inspection, you discover that this one you need to do it, you change it, or the concrete has fallen off, you quickly address it. But the periodic one, we carry out some tests, we investigate, and you discover that you have some of the components of the bridge that you have to change. Then you have to plan for it, and you now effect the change. We do it
nationwide. On all our bridges nationwide, we do carry out the inspection, after which we come up with the program to do the periodic maintenance. Now, that one was done for 3rd Mainland Bridge in 2018. That was when we closed it down for 3 days to carry out the investigation. After we got the result, the contractor placed order for the bad components that we are going to replace. The bearings, some of them are bad. The expansion joints, some of them are bad. So we are not manufactured in this country, and they are not something you go to the shelf and pick. Because of the specification of each of them, you have to order for it. Now the contractor order for it. It has come to the country. We want to carry out the periodic maintenance, and that's what makes us to say we want to do the partial closure starting from 24th of July this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Prof. 3rd Mainland Bridge is a very major component of the transportation system in Lagos, especially linking the mainland and the island.
It's a major artery.
Very major one. So if this, in 2018, the impact of the 3-day closure. Now, before 2018, sorry, it happened 2008.
2012.
First did 2008, then 2012, then
2018.
we want to do 2020.
Okay. So, Prof, I use 2018 because in those 3 days, the impact of that closure was felt around Lagos.
But Satan descended from the pit of hell.
This one Satan will not.
Amen. But Prof, this was 6 months. What are you seeing?
Well, I'm happy he's here because he has done part of what I said I will lay as my foundation. Because I read social media, my student asked me, people say, why now? Why do you have to close? Because we are going to go through pain. My first basic layout, foundation for everybody is that we just have to do it.
Yeah.
If we don't do it, that's a foolish man's philosophy that until the thing goes down, then if it is 1 pound of suffering that we are going to have, it's going to become 20 pounds weight by the time we allow it to go down. Because if it goes down, that 6 months becomes more than 6 years. So we just have to. It cannot wait. It's a foolish man's philosophy that until this thing becomes unusable. So they have to take it like that. Because he may be diplomatic, he's a civil servant, I'm a teacher in the class, so I'm a little bit giving more. So the second point I want to mention, you see, people normally say, with Nigeria, we want to say, that thing is not rocket science, that problem. Let me tell you, traffic management in Lagos is more than a rocket science. It's worse. Because when you are dealing with rocket science, the air philosophy you can calculate, velocity you can calculate. You can calculate the wind speed. You can calculate the adiabatic lapse rates, how temperature reduces. You can calculate humidity exactly. But when it comes to Lagos and its traffic and its the people, honestly, I don't know who said they have a magic to handle our attitude when it comes to, because we are religious, but you see the worst form. You don't see a Christian on Lagos Road. No. You don't see a Muslim. You don't see any, you hardly see any gentleman on Lagos Road. So that is what makes Lagos traffic management the worse than rocket science. I do not envy the Commissioner for Transport and all the stakeholders. There are two, I will get to it, there are two major solutions that we could throw at it, at the attitude, enlightenment and enforcement. But I will tell you, those two shields, they have major cracks that does not make it effective. Enforcement, you know who we are going to use to enforce. That's the police and all that. They have their own comma. Then about enlightenment, Lagos has a peculiar problem. You see, you enforce 100 people today. 20 of them move out to outside the Lagos, another 20 new ones. They don't even know what Lagos is saying. When we are discussing solutions, because we have to provide solutions to all that. Then the last one is that the regular maintenance, we must get used to it, as he has said. There are several components of the bridge. You have the pillars. Thank God, nothing do that one. I mean, that is still standing can't in Nigerian parlance. Then you have the beam on it. That one is fairly okay. I mean, there's no problem with that. Then you have the one that requires regular, the joints. They are like human joints. Roads develop arthritis. So what you are having is they now want to fix the arthritis of the third mainland. The joints, they wear out. When you drive over this, you'll be hearing boom, boom. Yeah. That is the joint, and they are kept there for a purpose because it expands during the hot weather and it shrinks. So in order to give it a breathing space, they have to create that space for it to expand and contract. Now, but they have to block it with something that is not hard. So you have the pad there. So they have to change that pad regularly. Initially, it was officially designed to be 2 years review to re-examine. But when we say, well, this is fairly okay, moreover, the cost of shutting down is heavy. We went to 4 year span. So the 2008, 2012, 2018 is actually the test to examine, what are gone wrong. My student asked me and said, look, then why didn't they do it from March? When COVID started, when all of us were inside the house, we wouldn't. Actually, I reached out to some of my friends.
I'll just have to interrupt you here, please. We'll just take a moment and we'll come back to ask the question, why wasn't this done when nobody was moving? We're back in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're looking at the closure and preparations for the maintenance, periodic maintenance of the third mainland bridge. So, Prof, you were talking about where we are at this point in time.
Yeah. And I was explaining the last point about the scheduled maintenance that and why people want to see, okay, the issue of where we are maintaining, that's where we are. The tar on the road, the joints. I've explained the joints, the need to retouch the joint regularly to cure it of arthritis. Then 2, the tar, that is the asphalt, is something that wears off. All these cars broke down, there is fire incidents, they scratch the road. You are removing the protective layer of the concrete beam. So occasionally you must stop and say, please, let's palliate these ones. Okay. So those are regular, whether there is a major problem or not, in order for us to be able to use it for a long time. Now, that is my basic foundation for this particular discussion.
Then,
1, we have to do it.
Sorry,
2,
Professor.
it's a rocket science.
Just before we went on that break, you said your student asked you why the maintenance was not done while we were on COVID break.
The other later discussion, now, I got across to my friends, those who are in government, because now we should have 1 or 2. I reached out to them, especially Lagos people. He said they will reach out to the federal. You know that lockdown was done by federal. They made major lockdown. So I sent a text that, look, let contractors move to the roads now. Because this is the time that people come. Many contracting job was in full swing. If you remember, that's the dry season. That's the best time for road work. And they agreed. According to them, they reached out to Abuja. Abuja did not give Lagos immediate go ahead. It's not that because they are wicked. Their own argument is also that, look, if we allow the contractors to come to road, the workers will need to move, by transport, then they need to feed, then there are other ancillary services that are, because I told them that the workers on the road are not so many. That is road construction workers, and they can social distance. And as at that time, maybe we have about 150 cases in Lagos. So I believe then it is in the sun, in the open air. I do not envisage any problem. But Abuja was afraid that if you open it, first of all, we are always very envious and jealous. The fact that you open market, church is saying now, you open market, church is closed. You open this thing, that one is. So immediately you open for, they will say, the China people, they have taken over Nigeria. That's the Xi Jinping put pressure on Buhari. That's why Buhari said the contract, because most of our major contractors are Chinese people. So they said, look, Professor, you have to wait. And it was very, very painful. Although later, they permitted Lagos to return to all those junctions they were reorganized. So that is my foundation. Later, we now discuss.
In addition to what Prof said, you know, when this COVID-19, when we heard of it, nobody understood it. Nobody knew the nature. Immediately, there was a restriction of movement. Most of these contractors, they are not citizens of this country. They went back to their country as well. Now the airports were all closed worldwide. There was no way for them to come back. Then locally, the worker, they had traveled outside Lagos. Interstate boundary restrictions, there was no way to move to come back. So we couldn't take full advantage of even the opportunity we had.
Okay.
Nigeria Governors Forum, they now listed some priority road. Of course, most of our road in Lagos are part of the priority road. But where are the personnel? They were not there. Only few of them that probably will not be able to take the administrative decision were around. So that's why we could not benefit from that lockdown.
So
Okay.
this planned closure, what exactly is going to happen?
What? As Prof said.
No, in terms of like movement, you know, people will move. People will go to work. So
People
what's the
will
plan?
move.
What's the plan?
The closure will start by 12 midnight on the 24th.
Which is
So,
Friday.
which is next week,
Friday midnight.
midnight. Now, if you are coming to Island to come and work, your regular lane is left opened. We are not starting work from that lane. You can still access the island through that lane in the morning.
Okay.
When you close from work, you come back through that same lane, back to Oworonsoki side.
Okay.
We are doing some palliative work on some of the alternative routes. As I'm talking to you, FEMA, they are working. Lagos State Public Works, they are working on some of the road where people can divert, the traffic will be diverted to. So movement, we know is going to have some pains, but we are prepared. We are working together. The Federal Road Safety, they are on ground. LASMA, they are on ground. The only thing is people should just obey the traffic rule.
Okay, the question I want to ask is, well, we had our reporters go around some of these alternative roads and bridges to the island and out of the Victoria Island. And some of the experiences by passengers, they were not palatable at all. I mean, some of the road users will use words like, let them shut it down now, we'll all sit at home. I mean, if Third Mainland is open right now and we are having this amount of traffic and suffering, when they shut it down, what will happen?
Prof said it. We just have to bear it. We have to do it. There is no alternative to it. For us to make sure that that bridge does not collapse, which we don't want, we have to be carrying out that periodic maintenance. It's like the joint, as he said. We are going to do that one. That's the surface work. After the 6 months, the contractor will now go under to continue with the work. We still have some that we want to carry out, but that one will have nothing to do with the traffic movement.
Okay. What is the position of Eco Bridge right now?
Eco Bridge, the contractor is working on it right now. In another 2 months, it will be okay. No, you know, Eco Bridge, we noticed a problem. It wasn't part of what we planned for this year. There was a problem. We went there, we saw it. The governor came and saw it before we were given the permission to close it down. Now, it's a federal government project. It takes time before you procure it. We cannot address it here. They gave us the approval from headquarters, and the contractor is already working there on it. If you go there, you see he has already set all the trusses to make sure that they will bring their lift and lift the deck up. Then
So
carry out the
Eco
repairs.
Bridge is working at half capacity.
It's working at half capacity.
Third Mainland Bridge is going to work at half
Half
capacity.
capacity.
What about Carter Bridge?
Carter Bridge has no
Full
problem.
capacity.
Carter Bridge has no
No
problem.
problem. Full capacity. The
It's
only
just
one we are
that-
still working on is Marine Bridge. We are
Okay.
working on Marine Bridge right now. The same
Okay.
problem, expansion joint, and then the bearings. That's what we are changing.
The only problem with using Carter Bridge is, of course, when you come off the Carter Bridge, there's a likelihood of you meeting trucks along that Ido corridor before you turn onto Eco Bridge.
I think last month they will do something about those traffic before that day.
Lagos
And,
people are
we-
in for the time
Third
of their
Mainland,
lives.
Third Mainland Bridge, we are going to work day and night to make sure we finish, if possible, earlier than 6 months.
Okay, now the other side, if Prof said something, we'll come back to Prof again for solutions. He said something about, he used two words, enlightenment and enforcement. But I'll stick with enlightenment. How much of enlightenment is going on?
This one you are doing is part of the enlightenment.
This one we're doing.
Other stations as well, they are doing enlightenment.
Okay.
And radio, they are
this
doing
one we're doing
enlightenment.
now. Mr. Paula,
People are listening to us. So
Are
it's
there
part of
people-
enlightenment.
Are there people
And,
at the
the
motor
local people,
parks
the
with
local people,
megaphones and all that, telling all these bus drivers exactly
especially
what
the
is
bus
going
drivers,
to
the
happen?
yellow buses in particular,
Yes,
and some of
yes.
the BRT drivers.
Yes, the one I said was on lighter mode. We have program to do that one to sensitize them. But
You
they
have
are
programs
also-
to do. They haven't been told yet.
They are aware. That's what they are aware already, that we want to close South Mainland Bridge as for them to have benefit of Third Mainland Bridge
You know,
in full.
Mr. Paula, I asked the question because yesterday was a very beautiful day in Lagos, so the mainland. Now, I got to a point where I climbed the pedestrian bridge and I looked back. The road outward Lagos is about 3-4 lanes, right? But I look back and I see about 8 lanes of vehicles
Yes.
pouring into a 3-lane road.
Yes.
When I ask the question of enlightenment, how much, before we get to enforcement, how much of that is going in terms of enlightening the drivers to not even climb onto the shoulders, but stay within the lane, knowing that the more they expand, the more contraction we have at this point of pouring in.
You know, that's what Rob said. No gentleman when it comes to driving in Lagos. They are always impatient. There was an accident yesterday, and everybody wanted to go at the same time. So they now make it to become worse for road safety to be able to control them. And that was what made some people to spend more than 6 hours on a spot yesterday. Now our people should change their attitude. We have the traffic signs, but nobody obeys it. Once there is any breakdown on the road, you see everybody moving anyhow. And then you now create problem more than the problem that is even on ground. So yesterday is the attitude of the driver that caused the problem that we had. And if they will obey the traffic law enforcement agent, I think things will get better. Okay. Because there is no way we can rule out accident on our road. Whether the road is bad, we have people that will say because the roads are bad, that's why they have accident. If the road is good, some people will say because the road is too smooth, they are on speed. So you see accidents. So there is no way that we can say there will be 100% accident free.
I'm just
attitude matters.
I'm just imagining, Prof. And the road is too smooth. That's why I had an accident. Prof,
Well,
when you are flying, 100.
The roads are good, so they have accidents.
We design our road. We design our road tied to a specific speed. That is 100 kilometers per hour.
The speed
you
limit,
see people running 200 kilometers per hour, 180 kilometers per hour.
There are no speed limits on the roads.
We have the science.
No,
we have the science.
This Lagos Ibadan Express.
We are working on it.
Okay,
we are working on the road.
Okay.
The contractors are there.
Okay.
That road is international standard.
No, I'm talking about the sign.
The signs will also be part of it. Everything will be there.
What about enforcement? When you put those signs there, would there be enforcement?
That's the work of the road safety. We are working together. They will make sure if you do not obey the traffic rules, your vehicle will be impounded. If you drive without driver's license, the Honorable Minister has said this after time, you don't even have rights to drive that vehicle. So all those things are part of the thing that we will make sure we carry out. Okay. If you drive without driver's license, your vehicle will be impounded.
We
Shouldn't
expect
you go to
that
jail?
with this kind of shutdown, should we partial
Partial.
shutdown, that law enforcement will be there to direct traffic and make sure that traffic moves as smoothly as it might, in spite of the shortcomings that we have. What are what are your thoughts about law enforcement and how traffic is going to look like when this comes into play next week?
Well, law enforcement is a word call. But let me quickly go through the quick takes solution that we want to put out there. You are here, sir. One, I want to suggest that the restriction from 10 should be removed. That is this COVID restriction of people that you should be back home by 10. Because people want to return. If you spread the time more, people will wait for, but if you remove it totally or move it to 12 midnight,
Okay, the
that
curfew.
is the first condition. It won't cost us anything. It won't increase. It's just that it will allow more people to flow in time. So I'm requesting for that. Then to have
So what you're saying is that because the curfew is at 10,
yes,
people
many
are going to
will
be
want
rushing back home.
to that. It's important.
Okay.
They just have to consider, and you are going to
Yes.
be at the high table. Please let them remove it for the period.
noted.
Secondly, LARU, that is Lagos Recovery Unit. You said vehicles will break down because the condition of those vehicles are not as pristine.
They are not
as-
roadworthy.
That is it. So they should be, that is Lagos Recovery Unit. You should have to. They should be on standby. They have PPP arrangement, and they should be mobile. It's not that they will go and stay somewhere expecting a phone call. They should be mobile so that anytime you have a breakdown in the alternate route, they will
removed
just take it out.
immediately.
It is important. If they have to advance payment for those PPP people who have those trucks, to put them in good condition so that immediately there's a problem, they will quickly invite them and their vehicle will not constitute another breakdown on the road. Then water. We really need to do something quickly on water. I had about 4 flights or 4 rides on water yesterday. Or George Jetty. Access is a problem. You could see me flying on Okada to access the jetty. You see suit, tie, everything. Very interesting sight. I had to take it from Ojo to Ikoyi to Elegbeta or so. Now, 3 things, I will make it quick. The access to the jetties, we have to work on it. The jetties themselves, most of them are in rickety. There are good ones, rickety. Then the routes, the wrecks inside the water. The last accident in Lagos State was partly caused by wrecks. The boat ran into the wrecks and tumbled. You see, under that water, there are so many wrecks of ships and all that they need to remove. And it's part of even what we discussed yesterday, because I went with the GM of LASWA to Nemasa to discuss some of the overlapping roles of agencies on water. That's for another day. So please let them clear the waterways so that then that accident also was partly because of illegal timing. You should stop movement by 6 p.m. They went around 8 p.m. So it makes it, those are the problem. And going back to enforcement. Then, so I want water to be put in good condition so as to be able to defraud
Be an alternative.
the
Because
traffic.
if the waterways are effectively working, the movement, from Oronshoki jetty, they can take a boat.
Yes.
From Ikorodu, they can take a boat instead of entering the road.
Yeah.
So you reduce the number.
The stakeholders meeting that we had on Monday, the Commissioner for Transportation was represented by the Permanent Secretary. The Permanent Secretary for Works and Infrastructure was there. Then the GM last month was there, and then the Director Operation last month. They were all there. Nigerian Police, Navy, then the Sector Commander. We had the meeting.
And that even reminds me, sir.
Sorry, please.
We were arrested on the water yesterday. My boat that I chartered. The Marine Police, they said they should pay 4,000 for something. That I wasted so much time. I didn't know they were so big. Then we were arrested by another group.
or you took one way.
There's one way in the water.
Task force we
I asked
arrest
my
you if you
boss,
take
I
one
mean,
way.
don't you have paper? They said, "Please, what are they all doing?" So please, they should stand down all those charges for those people that will be going by water now. This is not the time for all those. So
Okay,
please,
I
you
will
can
take
make
the
your
message
point
back.
because I will quickly also. I mean, if you are
No,
made
let's
your
let
point,
it finish.
So in the stakeholders meeting, we have the security committee, then we have the law enforcement committee. The towing vehicle, we know that we will need it on the third mainland bridge. We have made arrangement for the private PPP arrangement we said they have on ground. We are going to use it, and we're in charge, and things will work well. So nobody
We're in
should
charge,
panic.
he
We're in
says.
charge.
Yes.
you're on top of it.
We're on top of it.
Okay, but you said something about the waterways. Is that
Yes,
also being factored?
the commissioner for transportation
Okay.
was there with us, and then we discussed it, and he knows that the waterway must be 100% clean up for people to use.
Okay.
But the governor a few weeks ago commissioned several boats.
Yeah, about 16 of them, but I mean, they've been running. You know, my take is this. Government cannot run out the private operators. I advise they should strengthen them. 70 to 80% of mobility on water is driven by these private people. Lark Ferry cannot out-compete, or it's not even in the interest of government to think they can out-compete. This is something we have been here several times. Babakekere, Yakekere, it will come, it will go down, it will come, it will go down. I do not see much feature because government is subsidizing it heavily. So we had a conference globally, and one white man did a PhD in Lagos on mobility. He said what he found quite funny is that the private people, that yellow buses, the private boats, they carry around 80 to 90% of the movement. Yet government treats them as if they are outcasts. Whereas your effort will be to strengthen what they are doing, because you cannot do it efficiently as they are doing it. So help the yellow buses to operate better. And I made the recommendation, go to Nairobi. The buses are locally fabricated. It's like the Molue that we had in Lagos, but well padded. So that you have large buses, because about 5 yellow buses can go into one Molue. And you will reduce the number of and those people will find other routes to be taken. So the idea of, La Ferry cannot, government is just catalyzing the waterways. The real driver will be the private sector.
People.
So not to forget some of the point. Now, there are gridlock points. Oyibo, Ido. Yeah, please go, and they are doing marketing. Roads are for transport, not for selling bread, not for selling gala. They should remove them, because now we need the alternatives that are working. Then let me quickly address the issue of enlightenment. Now, I think since you are from interchange in Shagam to Lagos, you should put announcements in 3 languages telling people what you may say the governor says or the minister says, so that as they are coming in, they will have a feel of what are the new rules of Lagos. We are locking down the place next Friday. You are still thinking of what we will do. By now, enlightenment will have gone for about 2-3 weeks. So please, let's make that road from interchange to Lagos source of billboard information. It must be massive all the time.
Indeed, someone's actually saying that what should happen is, Michael is saying, what should happen is you should have those buses that are bringing people into Lagos have some of these announcements, what is obtainable in Lagos, so that and the drivers are mandated to play it before they take off.
That is right.
As they are approaching Lagos, you get to already play it.
Traffic radio.
As you are approaching Lagos, you play it, not just the radio, so that the drivers can play it at several intervals, so that those sitting in the bus can hear that when you enter Lagos, this is what obtained in Lagos so that standards are met. But we really have to go. So let me read out this comment so that I respond. Hinter says, road signs are as important as good roads, following international best practices in order to save lives, including sometimes to avoid accidents. Ogumba says the closure of Third Mainland will bring much hardship on its users because other alternative routes are either closed or under repairs. Then Hinter again says some Nigerians don't know how to drive, plus bad or absolute decayed roads without essential traffic signs and signals. But gentlemen, we have to go at this time. Engineer Olukayode Popola, Federal Controller, Works, Lagos, and Professor Samuel Odewumi, Professor of Transportation, and Dean, School of Transport, Lagos State University. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for giving opportunity to enlighten the public.
Thank you.
Please,
and ourselves too.
Thank you very
To
much.
market our products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, we'll be back in a moment. And this conversation around transportation in Lagos and the Third Mainland Bridge is not over yet, but you take note and learn to drive properly for the others as well. We'll be back shortly. Don't go away.
Ara. Ara meaning thunder.
Yes.
But that was an Igbo lady playing the talking drum. Janet Chiwendu Oforum, also known as Ara Thunder. She's one of the few women in Nigeria who have chosen to play the talking drum, the traditional talking drum. And barely a year after she began to play that instrument, she actually thrilled the French president, Emmanuel Macron, during his official visit to Nigeria. And shortly after that, she released her debut single titled Boju Boju, and that was in June last year. Ara, welcome to Sunrise.
Thank you very much.
Of course, I'm sure you've answered this question a million times. Why would an Igbo girl choose the Yoruba talking drum?
Okay, well, I'll say this. I'm not tribalist. I think the talking drum should not mainly be played by the Yorubas. I think the Hausas can pick up the talking drum and play as well. And we are African, we are one, so I don't think it should be majorly played by the Yorubas.
But the talking drum has a language, we are told,
Yes.
which very few understand. Now, you played to open this segment just now. What were you saying to us with your drum?
I was playing Dansaki Oba, Ojojumo Lore Resimi, Dansaki Oba. So I'm praising God and thanking him for this morning. So basically.
So if you're going to...
Wow.
Okay, interesting. If you're going to say good mornings for our viewers, just say good...
Okay, in English.
Whichever one.
In any language.
In any language, but with the talking drum.
That was good morning then. Ekaro.
In Igbo.
Please say good morning to me in Igbo. No. Verbally.
Ibolachi. Ibolachi.
Ibolachi. This is very interesting. Now, tell me, or tell us, where did you pick up the interest in the talking drum? It's a very unusual instrument for a woman.
Yeah. Okay, at the time, when I was a backup singer in Atunda Entertainment, I was formerly a dancer then. Then I became a backup singer. So I saw the way the male played their talking drum. And I was like, I can do this. Who says I can't do this? I can do it. And I went to meet my mentor, my founder. That's Ambassador Wanle Akimboboye, which is the founder of Atunda Entertainment. And I told him, like, I want to do something, but I don't know what it is. But I love this, but I don't know how to. And he taught me how to play it. Got somebody to train me on how to play the talking drum, and voila.
How long did that take?
I started 3 months. I started making sense on the talking drum. I started interacting with the talking drum.
And you started sending out messages.
Exactly.
Now, the first main female talking drum player in Nigeria is also called Ara, but hers is Ara, meaning wonder.
Wonder.
You are Ara Thunder. What part did she play in your adopting the talking drum?
I won't say she played any part, though. At the time, I didn't know who she was growing up, so I won't say she played it. Recently, I started because when I came out with Thunder, they're like, there's somebody else that's the pioneer female talking drummer that plays the talking drum. I was like, wow. So I went to research on her, and I was like, whoa, wow, okay. So basically, I won't say she did a part. Atunda Entertainment actually did everything.
Have you met her yet?
Not yet.
Are you looking to meet her?
Yeah, I am.
And you're going to talk to each other using your drums?
So if you're going to tell her, I want to meet you, before we go on this break, just tell her, I want to meet you.
In case she's watching. I want to meet you.
Aralala.
Say it in Yoruba.
Mo fẹ́ rí yín.
No, say it. Okay, so we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation with Ara Thunder. Don't go away. Oh, well.
Interesting.
Interesting. Ara Thunder is still in the studio, and she's going to play us out at one point before we go. Ara, you say you're not tribalistic, but you're of the Igbo extraction.
Yes, I am.
Have you attempted to use this in your local Igbo setting?
Yes, I have.
And what was the reaction like?
It was wow. It was amazing. I went for a wedding, and the couples were Igbo, and I basically performed all my proverbs in Igbo, and they were stunned.
And they understood what you were saying?
They understood. And I played actually the ones they would really understand, like this Onyegagbegu, Iya. So it was, they really understood what I was playing. So
Okay.
they were stunned.
How long? Oh, okay. How many hours do you practice every day?
10 hours. 10 hours a day. Every day.
10.
10.
Wow, that's serious work.
Every day.
Okay, we saw in that clip there you giving the French president a talking drum. Did he play? Was he able to play it?
He was actually, at first, it was like, would I know how to play this? I was like, okay, just put it on. I'll show you how to play it. And when I started and basically taught him just few reading, and he got it. He played along.
What was that experience like for you?
It was overwhelming. At first, I was like, should I go? Should I not go? Would he accept to play? And when I went, it was all overwhelming. The president playing my drum, wow. I was so happy, so happy.
Just thinking about it, I'm happy for you too. Now, tell us about your musical career.
Okay. I just brought out my single, Boju Boju, and I'm working on my album, which would be out next year. So I'm still working on it. So.
Is
But
it
you
what-
said you used to be a backup singer.
Yes, I used to be
First of all, you were a dancer.
a dancer.
Okay.
In Atunda Entertainment.
Atunda Entertainment.
Yes.
Okay.
So I moved to being a backup singer for artists Anodile Dekwe and Olomi Bata. They also play African instruments. So before I became a brand on my own, I started playing the talking drum.
Is this what you've always wanted to do?
This is all I've ever wanted to do in my life.
So all that time you were dancing and doing backup singing.
I just felt there was more. There was something else missing to add up. I wasn't really satisfied. And
So this has given you fulfillment.
yes.
But you are in a male-dominated field. How do you feel?
I feel amazing because it's not easy. You know, sometimes I go to an event and I watch other male percussionists, talking drummer, and when they call me up to perform, they'll be wondering and looking at me like, what is she coming to do? Does she really know how to play this? And I won't say anything. I know the look they give me. And when I finish my performance, they'll be like, wow, you're wonderful. I respect you. You know, they keep giving me commentaries and all that. So it's amazing. It's amazing.
You're fulfilled.
I'm fulfilled.
Okay. So what do we expect next from you?
Expect more from me. Expect something different totally. Something that will blow your mind. So just anticipate and keep your fingers crossed.
Okay.
Janet Chiwendu Ofurum, known as Ara Thunder, which is what she's written on her drum right there. Thank you very much for coming on Sunrise. And that is how we end today's show with Ara Thunder. Hope you've enjoyed being with us the last 3 hours odd. We shall bring you a fresh edition next week. I'm Alera Edu, wishing you a very happy weekend and all the best next week. And don't forget, Third Mainland Bridge closes Friday midnight.
And I'll take up from there. Before Friday, you prep yourself. If you don't have to go, then don't go. Make a phone call, do an email, work from home, but minimize as much as possible movement. Within the period we're in, the pandemic period, please stay home as much as possible. Wear your face mask if you must go out. Sanitize, wash your hands. Maintain the protocols, keep social distance. And when you do decide to get on that bridge, like Alera is doing, when you do decide to get on that bridge, please drive for the other person. You're driving your car, someone's driving you, drive for the next person. Let's maintain lane discipline as much as possible. 3 lanes should be 3 lanes, 4 lanes, 4 lanes, 2 lanes, 2 lanes. Don't shunt. Respect the other people on the road. And live not just for yourself, but live for somebody else. My name is Neo Taigbe. We'll leave you with Ara Thunder as she plays us out.